Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here. I am so excited to see you all. My name is Alicia. I am from National Young Farmers Coalition. I work as the West Organizing Manager, and I just want to share a little bit about National Young Farmers. Our vision is we envision a just future where farming is free of radical violence, accessible to communities, oriented towards environmental well-being, and concerned with health over profit. We believe we have one generation to transform agriculture in service to our communities and the land. We are that generation. We have a few guiding principles, but my favorite one is that farmers are leaders and change makers. There's a lot to talk about our program, but there's some opportunities for y'all to meet with us for our roundtables later. We're also helping host the Farmer Social. But I will share that some of the things that we're advocating for and helping uplift concerns for the farmers that we work with is access to land, access to capital, concerns over healthcare costs, also concerns of costs for production, student loan debt, as well as housing. So with that, I know we've done a few groundings, but we're going to do one more. So if you all could just take a moment, and we're going to just, if you feel, you can vocalize it if you feel like it, or just think it in your minds, but let's think or name 5 things that you can see right now. Name 4 things you can feel. 3 things you can hear. 2 things you can smell. And then this one, I'll give you an option of name 1 thing you can taste or one of your favorite things you like to taste. All right, let's take a deep breath. And I'm going to hand this over to Zara for introductions.
Hey y'all, my name is Zara. I am the Colorado organizer for National Young Farmers, and I'm also coming from a direct-to-consumer farm and ranch just northeast of Pueblo, Colorado. So my job is extremely personal, and it means a lot to me, so I'm really glad that you're here, and I'm really glad y'all made it safe. And I just wanted to shout out some panelists that aren't here because they're really important to me, and their work is really important. Caleb Valdez, he is a rancher out by Montrose, and if you're over there, you probably know of Uncompahgre Farms, direct-to-consumer beef. He has been a dear friend of mine and a mentor, and if he's watching, he probably doesn't know that I think of him as a mentor, but he is. And if you're a young farmer or rancher, he has a podcast on Quivira where he talks about how he was able to become a landless rancher through leasing, and it's a really inspirational story, and I'm glad to call him a friend. Another panelist who's actually going to be here soon, and hopefully she runs in, so I won't speak too much on her behalf, but Patience is coming to us from Food to Power, which is a food sovereignty nonprofit in Colorado Springs, and they're also an educational farm. They do great stuff. But again, I think Patience is going to run in from to make it, so I'm not going to speak too much more on that. Oh, and of course, our most beloved Evan Cavanis is not here today. She tried to make it, and she's the original panelist moderator, so Alicia and I are stepping in, and we miss her so much. So without further ado, I just would like everybody to introduce themselves and where you're coming from.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kate Greenberg. I'm the Colorado Commissioner of Agriculture. Know many of you from a long time doing this work, and been in Durango, Colorado for many years, but a lot of my life is on the Front Range these days in the last 6 years on this job.
Hey everyone, I'm Andrew West, and my wife and I run a small cattle operation. We're calling it a farm, maybe till we break the 100-acre barrier, then we'll switch to ranch. But yep, so we're up in Fort Collins, and we lease our property, and we're kind of just getting started on our own. So we're really excited to be here and really humbled to share a panel with some cool people.
And I'm Sarah. I'm his wife. And this is Lila. She's 8 months old, so hopefully she holds it together.
She's just going to eat it.
Okay, so for the first question, these conferences bring up a lot of difficulties within agriculture and difficulties and solutions. I wanted to talk about something that brings us joy. Why do we wake up to do agriculture? And I just wanted to ask that question. Why do you wake up when it's snowing? What makes you get out there?
Yeah, so I grew up in Washington State on our family wheat farm, and I always wanted to farm, but when I moved to Colorado, wasn't sure when that was going to happen or how that was going to happen. And when Andrew and I got married, we knew we wanted to farm or ranch or get into agriculture in general. And we came across this opportunity to lease our farm, and it was just an incredible blessing and so unexpected that we jumped on it. And just every day, I mean, it's a lot of hard work. I don't have to tell you folks that, you know it's hard work. But just that opportunity to get a start in the industry at this time in our lives, even when it's hard, knowing that we're laying the groundwork for our future, our future kids and our future family. And, you know, hard work, it's good for the soul. And so we just really love it. I mean, there's days that you don't love it, but you wake up again and for some reason you forget that the day before was hard, and you do it again.
Yeah, I guess everything Sarah said, and then for me personally, I just am really fascinated by agriculture, animals, crops, and so to me it just is like a good way to kind of nerd out, and then like the physical and the mental like combination has just been really cool for me. And yeah, it's a lot of work, like everybody knows, but it's rewarding, and you know, farming is one of the most noble professions there is, and so we're really humbled to be able to count ourselves a part of that.
Sorry about that.
Joy?
Yeah.
So joy for me, I'm not farming right now. I'm strictly in policy and running our agency, but I was farming long ago and working with the National Young Farmers Coalition for 7 years. So whether it was on the ground in agriculture or in DC in agriculture, the joy is always in the people and showing up together, doing real work. I think that's the other joy, is that whether we're lobbying or advocating for policy reform, talking to our neighbors or talking to people who eat but maybe have never been on a farm or ranch, there's just a realness to being in the work of agriculture, and that brings me joy every day.
Thank y'all for those answers. My partner and I joke around that agriculture is very honest in a world that's very fast-paced, but honest for better or worse. So I'm going to pass it to Alicia to ask Kate a question.
Alrighty, so this question is for Kate. Please tell us about your background before becoming the Commissioner of Agriculture in Colorado. How has your history as a young farmer and advocate yourself influenced your priorities for leadership at the Colorado Department of Agriculture?
Well, I'll start by saying I think, you know, everything has kind of built on itself in, I guess now, the 20 years that I've been in agriculture. So I grew up in Minnesota, part-time in rural southern Minnesota, part-time in the heart of the city, and I love them both. But I'm not raised on a farm, so I actually found agriculture when I went to college out in eastern Washington in Walla Walla, started farming on a draft horse operation out there, and then eventually graduated, moved to the west side where it actually rains, and worked on a diversified operation in the Puget Sound. Spent many years in seasonal work, in both in ag and conservation. So actually moved to northern Mexico and worked there for about 2 years, helping to restore the Colorado River Delta, reconnect the Colorado with the sea. My job was managing the tree operation, so we were essentially furrow irrigating a riparian forest that we had planted, and I was taking care of greenhouses down there. So a lot of field-based work that just I thought I was going to keep doing forever. I was never really focused on policy, certainly not on politics when I was in school, and was really keenly focused on the land and food and staying connected to kind of the source of life. But it was clear in Mexico that if I really wanted to work on agriculture and conservation, you can't do that fully without understanding at minimum what is going on in policy. In Mexico, for example, the reason I was down there was because we have dewatered the Mexican Delta at the edge of the Colorado River, and that has to do with how we've managed our water policy upriver. Now, it's much more complicated than that. We rely on the Colorado River. A lot of producers who I know in this room, of course, do on the western slope, but over here on the Front Range, we do as well. We, in Colorado, deliver water to 19 states, to the country of Mexico. We have interstate compacts, we have international treaties, and when I was down there irrigating and planting trees, it was clear that while I love the work of riparian restoration, of agriculture, of producing food, the ways that we do that and what's at hand for us to work with is so much shaped by the policies we have in place. So at some point I got a call from the then very nascent National Young Farmers Coalition. I think Sarah mentioned I was the second. I think I was the third employee at NYFC. And they were looking to grow their Western reach. And so I was lucky enough to become the first, or the second at that point, Western organizer, moved to Durango, and started building our Western program. And that really opened my eyes to what young people working together with our mentors of cross generations can do to shape hearts and minds around agricultural policy, especially when we bring groups of young farmers and ranchers to DC or bring our congresspeople to the farm. I still actually work with a legislator here in Colorado who is a CSA member and a herd share member because of those farm visits. So they make a difference not just in the hearts and minds of our folks here, but we really see that collective effort shaping what's happening in Washington. So to the question of how does that work shape my work as Commissioner of Ag, as I mentioned, I'm in my 6th year. So our 2nd term under Governor Polis, this is our last term, so 2 years left. And we've really tried to activate our organization to serve people wherever they are in their career or their engagement with agriculture. So whether you're not sure if you want to be a farmer, that's why we have our Ag Workforce Development Program modeled after Quivira Coalition's new agrarian program to help get young people paid internships in ag. If you're early career and looking to buy your first property, that's why we launched our revolving loan fund, so you actually get low rate, flexible financing for affordable land access in Colorado. If you're an ag worker and looking to see what other opportunities you might have, that's why we launched our Ag Worker Program to connect you with other resources, either at our department or across the state. So those are just some examples of how the work of young farmers and my past work we've really been trying to translate that into statewide resources and services through the department.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. This is a question for the farmers. The walls feel very high for becoming a farmer or rancher who is leading their business. When it comes to land prices or farm agency programming or loans, and I was just wondering what walls you've encountered and how you kind of broke through them, and then furthermore, what's the future looking like for you, and what would you want it to look like?
Yeah, so like Sarah said, she comes from a family farm. I have some experience just working on like regular ranches, feedlot, all that. And then I guess I personally kind of realized like I'm never going to be able to have my own operation by being a, ranch hand. Like you're never going to make enough money. And yeah, we're on the Front Range here, and like everyone else that's out here knows, the land prices are just crazy. So you're competing with, land developers, investors, municipalities. You're competing with hunters, hobbyists, and then your established farmers as well. So it's really difficult to buy into a property that we could make a living on. And so for us, that's kind of where we turn to leasing. And we're, I think that's going to be a really great opportunity for us. So we lease from the city of Fort Collins, and we have a partnership with Poudre Valley Community Farm as well. And so without them, we would be, it'd be really a struggle to find land. And so we're hoping we can kind of build both those relationships and keep growing. But right now, we both have to have off-farm jobs to just pay the bills. And so I think for us, that's the biggest challenge is just, especially with, a cattle operation, you kind of need a little more acreage than you can with like, market garden type stuff. And so, yeah, we're just we're looking to keep building that partnership with, municipalities. I think if they start to realize that there are some really cool benefits to regenerative grazing on all the properties that they own, especially on the Front Range, there's a lot of natural areas. And so I think that's a really huge untapped resource that we have here on the Front Range. So, yeah.
I think the biggest challenge for us as young producers is we're not only starting a ranch, but we're also starting our family at the same time. And so the day we signed our insurance on our operation was the day I went into labor with her. And so just all of this timing has been really, really crazy. And I remember when we were tossing around the idea of signing the contract and getting started on our cattle operation, some folks kind of pushed back a little bit and said, are we sure about wanting to, have a newborn on a ranch, learning how to be parents and ranchers at the same time. But we decided it was worth it, and we knew one of our goals since the beginning was to raise our family on an operation. And so Lila will have never known, hopefully, a life that she didn't have her cows. She has a favorite. Her name is Patricia. But yeah, so that was really a big challenge, just having time apart from each other, but strapping on a 2-month-old and moving cows and building fence, really trying not to touch the electric fence while I was holding her, and you were holding her. And so yeah, it's been really fun, and it's been a good challenge, and we look forward to the next year because she's a little older and can sit by herself a little bit more. But that was a big challenge in the beginning, but we're very glad we figured it out, and I think it made us better parents and better ranchers.
We might need to do like a YouTube video on how to set up temporary fence with a baby strapped on your chest. It's a little tricky.
Thank you so much for answering that. I relate a lot to what you all have brought up because I myself am a landless farmer, and just having access to land for agriculture or ranching has been incredibly difficult. And I know that I'm not the only one that's facing these issues. I'm sure there are people in this room or in the Zoom world who, we just don't have the capital or the privilege and access to land to grow the food that we want to. And so this is why we're having this conversation, and to uplift these concerns. All right, my next question is for Kate. How do you see Colorado Department of Agriculture and other regional state agriculture agencies addressing some of these challenges on the ground today? Another part of that question is, do you believe there is potential for state-based agencies to go further to address these adversities for young and BIPOC farmers that they are facing?
The second question is easy, yes. There's always more. I'll talk about what we're doing, and then just know that we're constantly kind of building on what we've built these last 6 years, plus 100+ years of foundation of our department. So for those of you unfamiliar with how our Department of Ag works, we are a cabinet-level agency, which means the governor, and currently our Governor Polis, who is elected by the people, appoints his cabinet. So he appointed me in 2018 to run the Department of Ag. So my role is to serve as advisor to the governor and also director of the department. and then every state in the nation has a Department of Ag. A few states out there, you might be from one of these states, have elected ag commissioners, and they run separately for office from their governor. So it's a totally separate kind of way that works. But here in Colorado, we are one administration, and we have had just really incredible support from Governor Polis, and then kind of from our ag world to, in my mind, kind of build up what CDA, Colorado Department of Ag, is able to provide. At least that's been my goal. So at our foundation is our mission. Our mission is to advance Colorado agriculture, protect consumers and a safe food supply, and foster stewardship of the natural world. And so those three things really guide all that we do. We are a regulatory agency, so that's our bread and butter, something we do every day. No matter who you are, our work will probably impact you. If you check out at the grocery store and weigh your tomatoes, that scale was tiered by our team at the Colorado Department of Ag. Or if you're a commercial livestock producer, your commercial scale was tiered to make sure you know you're getting what you're paying for. So that's just one example of really diverse work that our team does. In this recent E. coli outbreak, our team did all of the traceback testing on the potential contaminated food supply and helped the country figure out where the contamination was coming from. So we have to make sure we're continuing that work on the day-to-day. But we also have a really neat opportunity with this organization that has such incredible roots in our state and has grown and changed with the times. If you look at the history of the Colorado Department of Ag, which we're actually doing a big history project right now, 2026 is the 150th celebration of statehood, so there's going to be a lot of excitement around that time. But I was looking at our annual reports from the 30s, from the mid-30s, when we had dairy and we had sugar and we had the state lead bug person, right? And we still do. We still actually raise beneficial insects, and that's been a neat legacy for us. So that's just to say our work is dynamic, it's rooted in deep history, and now we have to make sure it's an agency that's prepared for the 21st century as much as we can be. So that means we're focused in 4 main areas: economic opportunity, how do we open new markets in the local and regional food system and in our international, with our international partners. How do we connect that to stewardship, especially climate stewardship? So we actually have climate smart marketing as part of our marketing team. We launched our soil health program a few years ago. We are investing in renewable energy, especially agrivoltaics. We launched a climate resilience office that helps actually put ag at the table on statewide and national climate policy. And then, of course, next generation, how do we support young people in ag no matter where their starting place is? So I mentioned some of those programs earlier. And then advancing animal health and welfare. We actually just launched a brand new division of animal welfare. We lead all foreign animal disease response in the state, so how do we make sure we're prepared for that and mitigating where we can? So the work is really, really broad and dynamic. Into all of that, we're focusing on equitable access to our resources and equitable outcomes. So how can we reach people we've never served? Our ag worker program is a great example. We've got amazing talent across our ag worker communities. We have language barriers that we're working to overcome by hiring bilingual staff and really trying to build trust out in the field. And lastly, I want to mention on this front, so much of our work is field-based and relationship-based. So while we're based in the suburbs in Broomfield, we've got people all over the state. There's a few key folks with the department I want to mention here today. One of our Ag Commission members, so a member of our governor-appointed board, Catherine Bedell, is with us. And then, yeah, let's give Catherine a round of applause. So she helps oversee me and the strategic goals of the department. And then a few years ago, we created what we call regional assistant commissioner positions, so working farmers and ranchers who live and work where they live and work, but represent CDA part-time and represent their communities with us. And George Witten is one of our regional assistant commissioners in the Valley. So those just 2 amazing people of many who are part of the department, and that's more and more what we're trying to do, is be part of our communities that we serve, expand who we reach, and then build the programs in such a way that they're meaningful for 21st century challenges we're facing.
Wow, that was amazing. I feel like while you're talking, all I feel is so lucky to be here right now, because when I worked in agriculture before, I was never able to attend a conference like this. And I've been thinking a lot about access to information, access to land. Right now, we're all receiving access to information, and there's so many government programs that personally I'm going to try to utilize because I just found out about them. But that's my own, the work can be really isolating, and it does sound silly. They are out there. I could be looking, but so I hope that I have friends right now who are preg checking or shipping, and they wish they could be here, so I hope we all go and spread all of our information when we get home to each other. My next question is for the farmers. I wanted to ask, what would be an ideal future for your farming journey, farming and ranching journey? What would that look like? For your family and your business.
I guess I'm answering. I think for us, we're kind of realizing that, there's going to be kind of some incremental steps here for us to go full time on the farm, and so I think we're just kind of ready to buckle down and realize it's going to take a lot of hard work, but I think just year by year we're going to try to build and eventually get to that point where we're ready to pull the trigger and go farming full time. And we hope to, raise some children in that lifestyle. I know Sarah growing up farming and all of her siblings, they're just a great family. And so we want that for our own family and our kids. We want them to be able to grow up in a really, really great way. And so teach the hard work is a good thing. And so I think for us, it's just we're going to try to grow, and we're going to try to just, not bite off more than we can chew, get ourselves out too far over our skis, but we're just excited with the journey, and we're ready to take it on.
Yeah, I think with farming and ranching in general, too, in an ideal world, this industry can be very, very isolating. And so I think the community building aspect is huge. People just working together. I know back home, when one of the farmers can't get a harvest in because of any reason, all of us, we show up with our combines and our bank out wagons. And I think ideally that kind of this, maybe there's a small barrier for sure in this isolation, but take that down and know that you're not alone. And I think we're very lucky that we have never felt alone on our operation. We have support from many, many people, which we are very lucky. And so I just hope the ideal world of wherever you are in your agricultural journey, the start or towards the end, or farming or ranching, of any size, is you feel like you are surrounded by a community of people who care about you and support you and will show up at any time. So.
Do we have a comment from our youngest farmer?
She wants to eat it again.
Thank you so much for that. We're going to actually do a question for both of you all. So I'll phrase it first for Kate. So we want to talk about how equity plays into the future of Western agriculture. Women, BIPOC farmers, and young producers have historically been underserved and even faced outright discrimination when trying to access federal and state level programs meant to support agricultural workers and producers. Colorado and other Western states are in a position to pave the way for a more equitable approach in agriculture. If Governor Polis were in the room with us today or on Zoom, what would you tell him is the most important thing he could do to support our state to lead the way for equity access for our BIPOC and young beginning farmers?
Yeah, great question. It's possible the governor's on Zoom. I don't know, actually. But it's a nice thought. I think the first thing I want to mention kind of goes back to like what I was talking about with George, our regional assistant commissioners. Kind of the model we're trying to enact at CDA is to help us figure out our own blind spots as an agency. It's really easy to get in the groove of just working with the people you know, and the people who you know are typically the people who know how government works. And so I think it's part of our responsibility to invert that as much as we can and go out and reach the people who may not know that there's something for them. We actually created a new branch for community engagement and outreach itself, so we're being very intentional about where are our gaps. I mentioned our regional assistant commissioners. We have 4 actually. So George is in the Valley. We have Nick Purchase in Pueblo County, Joe Stanko out in Routt County, and Riley May down in Lamar. And those 4 individuals, in addition to our 9 governor-appointed board members, represent a huge portion of the state. And they are critical, in addition to our staff, to helping us understand what we're missing. From a statewide standpoint on equity, the governor has been very clear about making state government serve everyone. Our administration ran on a Colorado for All, and we try and embody that every day. Statewide, there's a statewide equity office, and we work with them at CDA. When we're building new programs, like our loan program, for example, of course, with Young Farmers, did a lot of work on land access and access to credit and capital, and how can we build this loan program in a way that doesn't replicate the negative elements of government lending that we've seen in the past, but can perpetuate some of the benefits. So I don't know, I can't say that we're hitting the mark yet, but we've done things like flexible payback periods, so maybe you can't do monthly in your first 2 years of operating because you don't actually have the cash flow. So we can negotiate, potentially a 6-month twice a year. We have 4% fixed interest rate. Our partner is First Southwest Bank. We don't do any direct lending. So the state government will never own a foreclosed property, and that was really critical. But First Southwest Bank also has a CDFI. They have business training. We're working on sort of wraparound technical assistance, knowing that since we're trying to work with primarily first-time borrowers, you might not know how to write a business plan. You might not know the consequences of missing a payment. How can we make sure you're prepared for that before you enter into a lending situation, but then you have that support as you move through your career and sort of your financial growth. So that's one way that we're really trying to, again, look at our blind spots, lean on our community engagement, lean on our producers, folks in the field who represent CDA and represent their community's interests, but we've always got to keep learning. We are never going to absolutely hit the mark on equity, on access. It's always got to be further growth to make sure everyone who wants to be a part of ag knows how to get there and has that access to the resources that will help them do what they want to do.
I can repeat the question if you want. Okay, thank you so much for...
Sorry, Kate, I'm sure you get this a lot, this feedback, but with working with producers of all shapes and sizes, urban, rural, big, small, vegetable, fruits, commodity crops across the board, I feel like the biggest feedback I get from folks is that there's programs, grants, funding out there. It's just hard to submit it, just the process.
Are you guys... I know your actual end game is probably land ownership. Have you thought about that path and sort of the barriers and what help would really assist you to attain that goal?
Yeah, we've thought a lot about it. Well, it's hard to pencil out ever buying a property. And if maybe it's row crop farming or whatever, so you have to buy the land, and then you have to buy the equipment, you have to buy a lot of stuff, and so you're not even just looking at the land price. There's a lot of capital that goes into it, and same with ranching. Like a cow herd isn't cheap, and so we're kind of taking this opportunity to build up a cow herd. If we can start getting cows paid off, and we can get to a number that starts to cash flow for us year in and year out, then that leap into land ownership is a lot more it's a lot more affordable at that rate because we already have a lot of capital behind us. So that's kind of our approach is we're trying to just build our capital. Well, the land may not be accessible at the moment to purchase. Through a lease, we can kind of build up a cow herd, and from there we can maybe make that jump here in the future.
Yeah, this is definitely for the farmers. My biggest question is, with you guys doing landless farming, how come you chose to stay in Fort Collins, where I could presume it's pretty expensive? I'm from Idaho, and fortunately, fingers crossed, I'll inherit some land. But like, how come you decided to stay in Colorado, where it's a lot more difficult to attain that land later on versus like going to Wyoming or Montana or Idaho or wherever?
Yeah, like Andrew shared earlier, we both have off-farm jobs. I'm based out of Denver, and Andrew's based out of Fort Collins, and this was just where the opportunity was for us. Ideally, maybe someday would love to make it back to Washington State, West Coast, Best Coast, Idaho. I'm just kidding. Maybe make it back closer to my family, but the opportunity was in Fort Collins, and we really just keep our eyes open everywhere. We love Fort Collins. A lot of our friends are there, and it's a good place to raise our family, but it was just kind of where the opportunity was.
So I've traveled all over the country, and I've been shopping for land, and it seems like some of the more affordable land is in West Virginia, and it's all over the place. But there is an equation, kind of, that I'm getting my head wrapped around of what is profitable to turn a profit and to raise healthy food to help combat our chronic disease issues. And one of the things I'm finding out by interviewing friends, ranchers, farmers, is that especially people doing animals, is the processing system, right, and logistics of that. And I've met a few recently that are bringing it in-house and field harvesting, and kind of under the radar because of the legalities and government, kind of the government still living in the past of what happened and why that, I guess, the regulation for the butchering. But as far as governmentally, is there any path that you guys see to making that system better? Maybe, we talked about bringing in technology. I'm seeing people do that, field harvesting, using equipment, specialized gear, their own in-house, butcher shops that they're building and things. Could y'all speak a little bit about that? Because it seems like it's one of the weakest parts of the system. And any of you guys, but maybe government-wise first,
So government-wise, in the last, through COVID, there's been, of course, just an incredible amount of public money, state and federal. So all the IRA, the IIJA, those federal funding programs have gone to a lot of things, but one of them is in processing infrastructure across most of the country. And a lot of our states have been putting in resources to support that as well. So there's investment. I know there's many folks in this room trying to build out that local and regional processing infrastructure, because it's not just the brick and mortar, which is costly in of itself, but it's the labor, it's the training, it's making sure you have the market, the storage, the distribution, the whole chain. So there's a big focus on that because there are public resources right now to invest in it. So that's a lot of our focus in Colorado is right-sizing that. We don't want to overshoot and have more processing than we need, but I think we're at a place where what's being built here is really trying to capture the local and regional demand and then create that full ecosystem where you create that market, that chain, that workforce that can actually make that regional processing and food system more of a reality these days. Is that holding true for you guys? I'm curious.
Nailed it.
Yeah. I don't have much to add to that.
I've seen really successful cooperatives. It's called the Sunflower Foundation, and they are working on getting very large grants on the ground to start processing facilities in rural locations, which when I first heard about, I was really excited about because this has been a problem for a long time. And I haven't seen it up close happen, but I have seen it from afar and admired it. Ranchers getting together and farmers and all going in on this grant, and then so that they have that streamlined, okay, we have all these farms and ranches that are going to use this, and then go in on that risk together. So that's something I've seen that I've really admired from afar, and hopefully can hopefully see around where I live as well.
I think I actually, to add to that, and kind of add to your question up there, I think here on the Front Range, we do have a really good advantage as producers because there's a consumer base that's really wants like regeneratively grown foods. And so, I mean, this year we were just running bred heifers, and so we weren't really aiming to produce, sell beef farm to table. But I mean, we've had kind of a shocking amount of requests for it, just from people that we know. And so there's a ton of opportunity to market that food that you grow, whether it be animal protein or vegetables. And so I think if we can get an easy way to get that meat processed that doesn't break the bank and you don't have to wait 6 months, I think we can really there's a ton of untapped potential in this area.
Thank you so much. I think we'll take one more question. I'm gonna put the energy on this side of the room.
We're going to put the energy virtually, if it's okay with you.
Oh, you have a virtual question?
We have so many virtual
you
questions.
guys are off the hook.
Maybe we can take 2 virtual questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
And I apologize first, thank you to everybody virtually who is tuning in, and we won't be able to get to all of the questions, but thank you for asking them. So I think the first one I will ask is there a focus or interest by government in protecting agricultural land in urban and suburban settings from development, especially along the Colorado Front Range? And I think, Kate, that's probably directed at you, but any of the panelists can respond.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, there is a keen interest. In Colorado, at least, we're a big local control state, so everything that has to do with zoning, planning, all happens at the local government level. But at the state level, we have a very strong conservation easement program, tax credit program. We actually just reauthorized that this past legislative session, and that has really been an important movement in Colorado. Again, many folks in this room who have been leading the way for decades to normalize conservation easements, to show that they are voluntary tools for conservation, and really, an option for landowners for that permanent conservation. And then you'll see in counties, and I think Poudre Valley and Larimer County is a great example of when local governments take it into their own hands to protect lands and then make those lands available to farmers. And we are seeing that in counties around the state, cities and counties, but certainly certain Front Range local governments have been very, very aggressive on protecting working lands and making sure they're also thinking about access for beginning farmers.
Yeah, I think Fort Collins is a great example of that in Larimer County. The city of Fort Collins actually owns our property and a few other properties within city limits and county limits. And then Poudre Valley Community Farms leases it from them, and then they lease it to beginning farmers. So we're one of 6 producers. I think it's 6 producers that are currently operating on leased farms that are owned by the city. And so I think that's a great example of how at least the city of Fort Collins, I can't speak of for everywhere, has really shown a commitment to conservation and agriculture and the local food system.
Yeah, I think it's interesting just talking with the folks over there. They own quite a bit of land that they preserve and put into natural areas, and historically it's just kind of sat there. And I think they're realizing, and a lot of people are realizing, maybe that's not the way that ecosystem's supposed to operate. And so they're kind of sticking their necks out and starting to get some people grazing these properties. And I think it's showing good benefit. And we're kind of viewing it as up to us to be great stewards of that publicly owned property. you know, we need to make our landlords happy, and we also, you know, we've learned we need to make the public happy because they're driving by these properties every day, and so the public owns them. So we're doing our best to make that property look as beautiful as we can.
I just wanted to thank the virtual question because this is a really big problem in my agricultural community, and it's something that we actively fight because the scarcity of resources, especially water, is so real. And I don't want to sound preachy, but we can all show up at council meetings, and 100% of us eat food, so we all care to show up. And you know, farmers and ranchers are our neighbors, so it's something we have to fight collectively, and it can't be the people only that are out there every day. It has to be all of us, and yeah, this is a very personal question to me, so thank you for asking it.
I know I said 2 questions, but that was like a very robust response, so I think I might leave it to 1 question and ask you to close, and then we'll move to a break.
Thank you all for coming here. Let's give our panelists a round of applause. This was really fun, and I wish we could continue this conversation. And I hope if you see any of us later in the conference, feel free to come talk to us about any of these topics. I'm just going to close out with some young farmer announcements from our org. So as I mentioned, we are hosting a few roundtables, and we have the agrarian social that we're participating with today. So hopefully we'll see you all there. As part of our Young Farmers work, we ask you all to take a look at our website. We have a membership that you all can sign up for. It's $1. We have different higher tiers of memberships too. We have a newsletter. We have an action hub, which helps engage our farmers and activists into different levels of leadership and activities. Maybe it's an op-ed, maybe you're involved in our fellowships, maybe we're flying you out to DC, or you're hosting legislators at your farm. Those are some of the opportunities that we look at. In November, which is now, we have our Front Porch monthly call, which is coming up on November 14th. And then this event that we hosted, we call it our West Keynote panel speaker for young farmers. In a week or so, we're going to have our East Keynote speaker, which will be accessible on Zoom and online. So I hope you all can take a look at that. But yeah, I appreciate everyone coming here and everyone on the Zoom world, and thank you so much for your time.
Zara, Alicia, Kate, Andrew, Sarah, thank you so much.